Welcome to the science class. My name is Teacher John. I'm going to teach you science primary 6, term 2, term 3. Primary 6, term 3. Today we're looking at accidents and first aid in our previous lesson. But in today's lesson, we're going to look at fever. And what is fever? Fever is a condition when the body temperature goes beyond the normal. Fever is a condition when the body temperature goes beyond the normal. I hope you know that the normal body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius or 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the normal body temperature. So the moment the body temperature rises beyond the normal, beyond 37 degrees Celsius or 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, then we shall say you have fever. So they ask you what fever is, you can say fever is a condition when the body temperature rises beyond 37 degrees Celsius, or fever is a condition when the body temperature rises beyond the normal. Which normal? 37 degrees Celsius. What causes fever? Fever is caused by some diseases, and you need to know that fever is not a disease. Fever is caused by some diseases like malaria, typhoid, meningitis, and measles. When you get malaria, your body temperature will rise beyond the normal. When you get typhoid, your body temperature will rise, meningitis, and measles. So people with malaria, typhoid, meningitis, and measles, their body temperature tends to rise beyond the normal. And that's the reason why we say these diseases here cause fever. They make your body temperature to rise. Let's look at first aid for fever. Remember, we said fever is not a disease. So in case someone gets fever, what do you do? First aid for fever. First aid for fever. First aid for fever. First aid for fever, we have apply tepid sponging. Apply tepid sponging. I know some of you may be asking, but what is tepid sponging? Tepid sponging simply means get a clean piece of cloth, like a handkerchief, or like this small towel, and dip it in warm water or lukewarm water, water which is warm. So the moment you dip it in warm water, you remove it from warm water and you start massaging the forehead, the back, the chest of the victim. That is what you call tepid sponging. Since it is warm, it will open the pores on the skin. The skin has pores, small holes which let out heat and sweat from the body. So when heat is lost, because the pores will open because of the heat on a handkerchief or a piece of cloth, it will make the body temperature to lower. So first aid for fever is apply tepid sponging, getting a clean piece of cloth, dipping it in clean warm water, and start massaging or applying on the body of the victim. This will make the pores to open and the body will lose heat. Why do we apply tepid sponging? That's a question. So, question, why is tepid sponging? Why is tepid sponging applied? Why is tepid sponging applied on people with fever? Why is tepid sponging applied on people with fever? is to reduce the temperature. To reduce the body temperature. To reduce the body temperature, or to cool the body temperature. That's why we apply tepid sponging. So in case someone asks you, why do we apply tepid sponging? We apply tepid sponging to reduce the body temperature. Next, we look at convulsions. Convulsions. What are convulsions? I know you've heard about convulsions. 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 Now, convulsions are sudden violent body movements which cannot be controlled. Convulsions are sudden violent body movements. Violent body movements that cannot be controlled. That cannot be controlled. That cannot be controlled. Convulsions are sudden, not sudden. Convulsions are sudden, violent body movements that cannot be controlled. Convulsions are sudden, violent body movements that cannot be controlled. Convulsions are sudden, violent body movements that cannot be controlled. So you find that someone with convulsions starts shaking. So the whole body starts shaking uncontrollably in a way that they cannot control them. The body just starts shaking and shaking and shaking and shaking and shaking. That is what we call convulsions. And these convulsions are very, very common in children and even adults. They can also have convulsions. And convulsions are caused by high fever and epilepsy. What causes convulsions? 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 Now, convulsions are caused by fever. That's one. Then number two, convulsions can be caused by fits or epilepsy. Epilepsy. Epilepsy are also known as fits. Epilepsy or fits, they cause convulsions. And epilepsy is a disease that may result due to inheritance, or it may result due to brain damage. Let's look at signs of convulsions. Signs of convulsions. Signs of convulsions. Signs of convulsions. One, excessive sweating or sweating excessively. Sweating excessively. Sweating excessively. Number two, urinating frequently. Urinating frequently. Somebody with convulsions, you urinate frequently, and you will have excessive sweating. Then, foaming mouth. Foaming mouth. Foaming mouth. So the mouth will be full of foam or bubbles of saliva, or saliva bubbles will appear in the mouth. That's what we call foaming mouth. Then violent shaking or shivering. Violent shaking. Violent shaking. Stroke shivering. Stroke shivering. Violent shaking. Stroke shivering. Violent shaking. Stroke shivering. These are some of the signs of convulsions. Sweating excessively, urinating frequently. You can even urinate on yourself. Not necessarily going to the latrine to urinate, no. You urinate on yourself. When you are just seated in the chair, you start urinating on yourself. You start sweating excessively. Then your mouth starts foaming. Saliva comes out. Bubbles of saliva coming out of your mouth. That's what we mean by foaming mouth. Then violent shaking of the body. The body starts shaking or shivering. The body starts shaking or shivering in a way that you cannot control them. Violent shaking or shivering of the body. Shivering of the body. And the body shakes in a way that you cannot control the shaking. So that is it. Then we look at first aid for convulsions. First aid for convulsions. In case somebody gets convulsions, what first aid do you give to this person? First aid for convulsions. First aid for convulsions. First aid for convulsions. One, put a hard object in the mouth of the victim. Put a hard object like a spoon in the mouth of a victim. Put a hard object in the mouth. Put a hard object like a spoon. Put a hard object like a spoon in the mouth of the victim. Put a hard object like a spoon in the mouth of a victim. So you get a hard object like this. If this was a spoon, you put it in the mouth. Why? To prevent the victim from biting the tongue. Why? Why do we put it in the mouth? To prevent the victim from biting the tongue. Prevent the victim from biting the tongue. Prevent the victim from biting the tongue. So that's the first aid you give. That's the first aid you give to somebody with convulsions. How to prevent fever and convulsions. How to prevent fever and convulsions. How can fever and convulsions be prevented? How to prevent fever and Convulsions. And if you read following, it simply means that if you don't control fever, fever will turn into convulsions. Because here we are saying that one of the causes of convulsions is fever. So for you to control convulsions, you must control fever first. But if you don't control fever, that fever will turn into convulsions. That's what you should know. One way of controlling fever and convulsion is early treatment of malaria. Early treatment of malaria. If you get malaria, you should be treated as early as possible. Early treatment of malaria. Because malaria causes fever. And the moment you get fever and you don't control fever, you will end up getting convulsions. Then taking children for immunization against diseases like measles, immunizing children against measles, immunizing children against measles. Because the moment you get measles, you will get fever, and the moment you get fever, chances are high that you will also get convulsions. So it is as simple as that. That's all about fever and convulsions. Next, we look at another accident called drowning and near drowning. Drowning and near drowning. Drowning and near drowning. It's another example of an accident which can easily happen at home. And in case it happens, what do you do? So first of all, what is drowning? After that question, what is drowning and what is near drowning? What is drowning? Now, drowning, first of all, to drown is to die in water. When you hear that somebody has drowned, it means that this person has died. Why? Because during drowning, the lungs are filled with water and one fails to breathe. So drowning is a condition when one's lungs are filled with water and one fails to breathe and dies. Drowning is the condition in which one's lungs are filled with water. One's lungs are filled with water and one fails to breathe and one fails to breathe and dies. Drowning is the condition in which one's lungs are filled with water and one fails to breathe and dies. That's what we call drowning. You fall in water your lungs are filled with water. So as you fall in water, water will pass through the mouth, through the nose, goes in the lungs, and when it reaches the lungs are filled with water. And when lungs are filled with water, it means there's no space for air, and you fail to breathe. Because of that, you die, and that's what you call drowning. Then, what is near drowning? What is near drowning? What is near drowning? What is near drowning? Near drowning is a condition in which one's lungs are filled with water, but one fails to breathe but is not yet dead. What is near drowning? What is near drowning? Shall say, near drowning is the condition. Near drowning is the condition near drowning is the condition in which one's lungs are filled with water, and one fails to breathe, and one fails to breathe and dies. One fails to breathe and dies. So, near drowning is the condition in which one's lungs are filled with water, one fails to breathe, and is not yet dead. Near drowning is the condition in which one's lungs are filled with water, and one fails to breathe, and is not yet dead, but is not yet dead. So with drowning, your lungs are filled with water, you fail to breathe, and you die. Near drowning, lungs are filled with water, you fail to breathe, but you are not yet dead. You still have around 4 minutes. In case you are not given first aid, then the next thing that will happen to you is death. So that's the difference between drowning and near drowning. Near drowning condition when the one's lungs are filled with water, one fails to breathe and dies. Then drowning is a condition in which one's lungs are filled with water, but one is not yet dead. Still has around 4 minutes to live. That's why when you are giving first aid, you must be quick to save life. Common sites where drowning and near drowning can take place. Common sites where drowning and near drowning can take place. Common sites. Common sites where drowning and near drowning. Common sites where drowning and near drowning can take place. Which areas can one drown or near drown? One is bathtubs. 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 People can drown in bathtubs, in bathrooms. Let me hope you understand what bathtubs are all about. Then one can drown in a well. Wells, streams, rivers, one can drown in a lake, ocean, seas, septic tank. Septic tank. You can drown in a septic tank. Yes. You can even drown in a toilet, in a latrine, pit latrine. Yes. Pit latrine. You can fall in a pit latrine and you drown with feces. Yeah. You can drown in a pit latrine, septic tank. You can drown in a pond. One can drown in a pond. Then we have swimming pools. Swimming pools. All these are different areas where drowning and near drowning can take place. First aid for near drowning. In case, because you don't have first aid for drowning, when you are dead, no first aid can be given to you. You can only be buried. But we have first aid for near drowning because one is still alive. Remember we said with drowning, one is already dead. Near drowning, you are still alive, so you need first aid. The first aid for near drowning. First aid for near drowning. First aid for near drowning. One, shout for help from people around or yell for help. Yell or shout for help. Shout for help or yell for help. Shout for help or yell for help. When you yell for help, people around will come and rescue you. If somebody falls in water, if there are people there, please shout so that people can come and rescue. That's why we shout, to call for help. Number two, remove the victim from water. Remove the victim from water. Remove the victim. Remove the victim from water. Remove the victim from water. Remove the victim from water. Number three, expel water from the lungs. Expel water from the lungs. Expel water from the lungs. After expelling water from the lungs, give the victim a kiss of life. Give the victim a kiss of life. Give a victim a kiss of life. Give the victim a kiss of life. Give the victim a kiss. Give the victim a kiss of life. Give the victim a kiss of life. Give the victim a kiss of life. So that is what we call first aid for near drowning. First aid for near drowning, yell or shout for help. Number two, remove the victim from water. Number three, expel water from the lungs. Number four, give the victim a kiss of life or mouth-to-mouth breathing. Mouth-to-mouth breathing. Mouth-to-mouth breathing. How is it done? You close the nose, open the mouth of the victim, and blow air. That's what you call a kiss of life, not kissing somebody's lips. Okay? So you close the nose, open the mouth of the victim, and blow. Put your mouth on the mouth of the victim and blow their air. When you blow their air will go to the lungs and the victim will start breathing. That's what you call a kiss of life. Then let's look at how to apply and a kiss of life is also called artificial respiration. And why do we apply a kiss of life? Why is a kiss of life applied? Why do we apply a kiss of life? Why do we apply a kiss of life? Why do we apply a kiss of life? It's very simple. Why we apply a kiss of life is to restart breathing or to open the airways. To open the airways. To open the airways. Or you can say to restart. To restart breathing. To restart breathing or to open the airways so that this person can start breathing. That's why we give a kiss of life. Then we have ways of preventing drowning and near drowning. How to prevent drowning and near drowning. How to prevent drowning and near drowning. How to prevent drowning and near drowning. Now, drowning and near drowning can be prevented in the following ways. 1. Be careful when crossing flooded areas. Be careful when crossing flooded areas. If you find a place with a lot of water, don't test the depth of the water with your feet. Get a long stick and try to see how deep that place is. Because if you test it with your feet, you may end up drowning or near drowning. So, be careful when crossing flooded areas or avoid flooded areas. Avoid flooded areas. So when it rains and the area floods, avoid such areas because you may end up drowning or near drowning. 2. Learning swimming skills. Learn swimming skills. Learn swimming skills. So you're supposed to learn swimming skills so that you don't drown. In case there is an attempt of drowning or near drowning, you're able to save your life by swimming. And that's why modern schools these days, like Train Up a Child, we have swimming pools. We teach our children how to swim. Why do we teach them swimming skills? So that in case they find themselves in danger of drowning or near drowning, you are able to save yourself because you have the swimming skills. Number 3, use life jackets when sailing on boats. Use life jackets. Use life jackets. Use life jackets when sailing on water. When sailing on boats. When you are using, if you go for a boat cruise, please make sure you wear a life jacket. This one will help you avoid drowning. In case of an accident, you will remain floating on water until they come to rescue you. So you will not sink in water. That's the importance of a life jacket. It makes you float. Then, supervise children when they are swimming. Supervise children. Supervise children. Supervise children while swimming. Supervise children while swimming. Don't allow children to go for swimming alone. There must be somebody to do the supervision so that they don't drown. Then, fencing off swimming pools. Fencing off swimming pools. Fencing off. Fencing off swimming pools. Fencing off swimming pools. Fencing off swimming pools. So swimming pools should be fenced to avoid drowning and near drowning. Then lastly, covering all septic tanks. Covering all septic tanks. Number 5 is here. No, number 6. Covering all septic tanks. Covering all septic tanks. Remember we said one can drown in the septic tank. So you're supposed to make sure that your septic tank at home, at school, has a cover so that you don't fall in it. Because the moment you fall in the septic tank, you will drown in feces. Otherwise, so that one marks the end of our lesson. When we meet in the next lesson, we shall look at fainting. I think you heard something about fainting. So that's what we shall look at in our next lesson. May the Almighty God bless you abundantly. Stay safe.